In the world of branding and advertising, creativity and innovation are not just tools, they're essential. Behind every effective campaign are dedicated individuals crafting them strategically to resonate and inspire. These are their stories.
In a business, you need to make your customer the hero. And so when you're looking at video, like, that's all we're doing.
It feels like a complete different direction than what we've been doing. And we said, okay, how do we make sure it's still on brand, it still reinforces that message?
You have to be solid with the script first. If you have a solid plan, you can execute almost flawlessly.
Welcome to Behind the Craft. Today, I'm talking with Margo Luey. Margo is the video and photography specialist at BrandCraft, a strategic brand agency that empowers businesses with brand and business strategies to own their next chapter. At BrandCraft, Margo uses lighting, cinematography, editing, and color grading to bring brands to life and boost marketing results for our clients. Today, we're going to talk about the way brand informs the directions we take in video and in photo projects, and how a brand can stay consistent while evolving and exploring new themes in a campaign. Margo, good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for coming on. So I'm excited to talk about this project because it technically hasn't even finished running yet. So I'm hoping that by the time this airs, all 3 of the spots in the campaign will be finished. But I'm excited because this is a client that we've been working with for a long time, for many years, and that we developed their brand, but they're sort of taking a new twist with it. So excited to get your perspective on that and just talk about getting into the technicalities of how we pulled that off too. But because this is your first official time, you've been on the show before, but never officially with an episode that's going to go live. So she was in test recordings, for those of you who don't know, when we were first kind of trying out this podcast idea. Why don't you tell us about your journey as a videographer and then at BrandCraft, and just your story to how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so, I was given a camera when I was 11. It's actually really similar to your story, which is always so funny to me.
Yeah.
But, as a kid, I had a camcorder, and that's what during the summers, instead of a babysitter, we just made films and videos the entire summer. And it'd be with my siblings and my friends, and we just, sit down every morning and just be like, okay, what are we going to film today? And come up with a script on the spot. And we'd go to the dollar store and buy the worst props, and, and it was a tape. It was a cassette tape.
Yeah.
And so when I was editing, film all the outtakes and everything, and then I'd go to the VCR, and then I'd edit to a VHS tape and press record on the takes that I liked. And I got some really good match cuts while I was doing that. And
That's cool.
We had a tripod. I didn't really use it, but, and I took a bunch, like every single video class I could take in high school, I did that. And then I didn't know how secure the video world would be, like job-wise, so I didn't go to it right after high school. But not too long ago, I guess it was right before the pandemic, I was just like, this is what makes me happy, so I need to just go all into it. So I ended up getting my degree in digital cinematography from Full Sail University. Got my degree during the pandemic, so that was completely different.
Yeah, definitely.
But while I was getting my degree, I was also working at the convention center filming hockey, and then I was also working at KView, which is a local news station, as a photojournalist. And then I filled in for the floor during live newscasts, filled in as a assistant editor, and things like that. So I got a lot of experience really quick before I even graduated. And then before BrandCraft, I was doing a very similar role to this one, just making commercials and other ads for clients.
I think you've done every kind of video there is then, at that.
It feels like
it.
it.
You've done some filmmaking of your own. You've done news broadcast, which is a total different beast, I think, than what we do now in advertising. It's a completely different approach and strategy to it. That is so fascinating. So you edited on the VCR recording, you'd press record on the VCR at the same time when you found the take you liked in all your footage. See, I didn't even we did in-camera editing, so we would just freeze and then move the camera to the other side. And then when I was a kid, you talked about how we had a similar, and we did, the same thing. My brothers and I, we grew up just that's what we did for fun. We made movies. We had a little camcorder with a cassette tape, same like you had, and that was great. It's a great way to spend our summers. So this actually kind of bleeds in, really. I was going to say this. That explains probably why your technical skills are so high. So you already were using technology in a much more advanced way than I was in film. I didn't even think about editing or getting multiple takes back then. We didn't think we had a chance. It was just like, look, we got to get it because this is the cassette tape. And that was the movie. Our cassette, we never put it onto a VHS. So speaking of that, you're a person with a lot of technical skills. Well beyond just creativity. So do you think that you have a passion specifically more for the technical skill in addition to your passion for creative, or do you think that your passion for filmmaking is what made you find that technical skill?
Yeah, I definitely think I found my passion for the technical aspect of it first. Like, it wasn't about the story. I didn't focus on the story. I focused on I think I focused more on the editing process because I've always found that fascinating, and like the different softwares and what you can do in post. And so like the technical aspects of like a film camera, that's something that's actually a little bit newer in my skill set, even though it's newer for me, even though it's not new in my current skill set. But,
right.
when I was a kid, my dad, like for fun, we would just go to Best Buy and look at specs of technology. That was what we did for fun because, it was free. So you could just go look and see like, how great a processor was or how fast something connected. And I just always really enjoyed the technical aspects. And when I was in film school, in my directing class, they actually said, like, you're a technical director. You need to figure out how to be an actor's director, like a story director. So I've been focusing on that a lot more, and I hope it doesn't show that that's not like my, that's not my default,
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
That's all right. I mean, it's good to have all those different skills. Like, again, I think I lack on the other side. So it's one of those things where for me, I just wanted to tell stories, and then video was the way I found a way to do that. But I didn't take it as far or know how to go as far with it as I could have because I didn't have the technical, passion that you have. You are growing in that, by the way. You directed me in a video yesterday and made me feel pretty comfortable, so that's good. No, I think you're good. I kept telling myself, like, just focus, just talk to Margo. That's okay. The camera's not scary if you just talk to Margo. So let's talk about BrandCraft as a strategic brand agency. Our focus is brand. We're always brand first. How do you define the relationship between brand and then video and advertising?
Yeah, when I was reading the brand new brand guide that BrandCraft has, it focused a lot on story and making the client the hero of their story. And so in BrandCraft's world, like, our client is our hero that we need to make their story fantastic. But in a business, you need to make your customer the hero. And so when you're looking at video, like, that's all we're doing is making a really good story. Whether it's short form or long form, you're just going through the paces. You're telling the story arc. You're making sure that, there's a hook, there's, conflict, but then it's resolved,
Yeah.
And I think luckily I have that news background because, I go out and film like all day and then I'd have to cut it down to 30 seconds.
Right.
Every day.
Yeah.
So I felt like I got really comfortable with the story process pretty quickly. But yeah.
That's honestly a great transition into the topic we're going to talk about today, which is this McCurley Dealerships campaign, because that is such a huge part of their brand, right? So like you talked about making the client the hero, making the customer the hero. That was a huge focus, and a lot of the talks we had with them when we were rebranding them was changing it away from talking about McCurley and making McCurley's customers the hero of all the stories we tell. But yeah, can you tell us about McCurley Dealerships and then what the goal was of this specific new campaign we did this year? Yeah,
so McCurley, they do a lot of video work with us. I think I've got 3 different campaigns in my editing folder right now. So, we have their deal spots, which is mainly selling something, like it's going to be a temporary sale. It's not evergreen, I guess. Right. Which evergreen, for those that don't know, is just you can place it on air anytime. It's not going to be obsolete.
Right.
Like, it's not like a Valentine's Day spot, things like that. But
yeah, we sometimes call them branded spots because it's more of like brand reinforcement, general awareness. Yeah.
Yeah, and we have the used car spots, which we chose a documentary style for, and then we're talking about the quarterly branded spots right now.
Right.
So the branded spots, we aren't selling anything. We're just trying to make people remember McCurley, really. That's the ultimate goal. At least I had to explain it to the actors that way because it was different than what they're used to seeing McCurley do commercial-wise.
Right.
So we took it where, like, there's these scenarios of, the the customers are sitting in a brand new car and they're imagining what their life is while they're in that car. And yeah, it was a really fun concept. We have 3 completely different, customer perspectives.
Yeah. So from what they've done in the past, McCurley, like what you know about the spots they did before this new branded campaign, how is this different in an approach and in style from what they've done in the past with their spots?
I mainly remember their old stuff with their old jingle.
Okay.
And I don't even know if I remember the rest. I think I just remember the jingle.
Okay.
Because that was it was just so catchy.
Yeah. Well, that's the reason why actually when we rebranded, we rebranded McCurley before you had joined the BrandCraft team, but like that was why that was actually really important to me that we keep that. So the jingle, the guitar riff we put at the end of all their spots now is supposed to, it's their old jingle but without words, and it gives it kind of a little bit more of a ground, a little bit more of a modern and like nostalgic feel, so you remember the old McCurley, and we want to make people, make sure people know this is still the same dealership that you grew up with, that we're comfortable with, this is still your hometown, whatever. And just because they've changed in their look and they're evolved, still feel familiar. That's a very important part of their brand too. So yeah, I didn't even grow up here, but I thought their jingle was catchy enough and memorable enough that we couldn't just let go of it without at least paying some kind of homage to it with their new brand. So what we've done for them since their rebrand was we rebranded McCurley. Their new tagline, their new everything about them was that McCurley Dealerships is your way home. They help their customer find their way home. It means finding the right car for them, treating them right, making sure their car is safe. It's all the things that get them home. And it's always been a very like heartstrings, touchy-feely spots that we've done. Very emotional based, very like, usually there's no dialogue. It's just, montages of all these like really big moments in people's lives that we've all had moments and experiences in our cars, right? So the whole thing is tying these memories that we can all kind of relate to of things that have happened in our car, laughing with your kids, getting picked up by your mom after a bad day at school, whatever. You know what I mean? We all have these moments. And the point is, like, this car is more than just a vehicle, right? It's your way home. It's your way to where you feel comfortable and, where you feel at home. And so this year, they decided they wanted to do something. They said they really want to play more with comedy, which is it feels like a complete different direction than what we've been doing. And we said, okay, how do we still make sure we're talking about McCurley Dealerships is your way home and using comedy to kind of get people's attention? And to me, that's the biggest difference. And in part of doing that, we did start giving, now characters have dialogue. They have, we're following specific stories of characters finding their way home. So how did we, leading into that, the problem of like finding out, okay, so now we're going to sort of change a little bit of tone or theme to this campaign, but how do we want to make sure it's still on brand, it still reinforces that your way home message?
Yeah, I remember our first draft of these scripts was completely different. It didn't have comedy. It was more of that montage thing. Mm-hmm. And when they brought that in, we just sort of were like scratching our heads a bit, like, what do we do? But then we brought it up in a marketing meeting with Thomas, and he's like, well, what if we just like totally did something nobody's expecting? Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, you could have like a grandma rapping or things like that. Yeah. So we ran with that, and I thought that was pretty creative. But
I think the approach was we just said, okay, we can make this about someone specific, your way home. We can even we transitioned kind of slowly, I think, with the release of these spots, as we kept them still playing on those moments and memorable moments people experience. But we just thought of funny situations that happen in your car. Instead of just the emotional or happy or triumphant or sad ones, we thought, like, what are the ones that are funny you look back on and you laugh about? And I think even in the first meeting we had with McCurley, their CEO said, he had told me, like, I just want to do something with Grandpa taking his son shopping for a car. And so that kind of stuck with me. And I thought, all right, I'm going to find a way to work that in. I'm going to make a spot about that. So that became the first spot. The next one, again, was just playing off that idea that same thing. It's like, let's something kind of heartwarming, but again, funny. And I have kids, and I know that kids can be sometimes chaotic. So we just played on the chaos of having kids. And then the last one was, again, what inspired the entire idea for the campaign that you mentioned. Thomas, our creative director, kind of pitched, was he said, what if you have, like, I think he said, or grandma blasting metal music, I think was what he said. Or he said a big tough guy who's gardening or knitting or something. Like, he was just saying, like, what if we did opposites? And then I thought, well, that's a great way to, like, sort of tease that expectation and make you think you're going to get one thing. Mm-hmm. And we even did that throughout the campaign. So it starts with fairly basic, straightforward, like it's kids envisioning themselves street racing or doing something silly like a dumb teenager might do, and then kind of getting embarrassed, getting caught by his grandpa, whatever. And then it evolves into eventually just like off the wall, like not
Yeah.
what you expect. Like the first two are kind of what you expect, but funny, and then the last one is just like really grabs your attention by being not at all what you thought you'd see. It's just something unexpected you wouldn't expect to see from
Right.
like an elderly woman or a woman this age doing, which is honestly has been hysterical just watching all the revisions and the edits and the
Oh,
time
yeah.
we've put into this spot because it's so funny. But I wanted to give credit. Who is this actor we chose? You
Yeah.
casted the actor. I want to talk about that.
Well, my great-grandmother, she's been in a couple short films
Yeah.
with me, and I think about 4 or 5 years ago, I had her in like the 72-hour film challenge, and she loved it. I told him, like, can you just be a grandma? And she overacted in that spot so much, which I thought was so funny. I'm like, no, I just need you to be yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
But she loved it so much, and so now anytime I have an opportunity, I tend to have her be in a spot. This is the first, like, I think legit spot she's been in, but I knew that she was capable of it. I knew that she'd take good direction. And I knew that she had the confidence to do it too, because, we aren't just asking somebody to act normally.
Yeah.
In a normal comedic commercial, we're asking somebody to be pretty out there. And I also knew she'd put the time in, and I
Right.
could direct her a lot easier than.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Because that's also, we didn't even mention that. But as part of to pull this off, this is getting into the next question a little bit. But before we get into the super technical, part of this was we knew this person, whoever we cast, was going to have to spend a good bit of time putting the effort to memorize these rap lyrics. And we also knew it was a demographic of person who probably doesn't listen to rap music. So this is not going to be an easy task for whoever we cast. And we'd cast actors. Usually we go through like a local talent agent or someone to cast actors for this. But for that spot, you just kind of spoke up and said, look, my great-grandmother is perfect for this.
Yeah.
And I can get her on the script and on the song memorizing lyrics right now. And I think, she had 3 months or something that she put into that, which is great because as we were filming these other spots, we just knew we were saving this last one. This next one was the best for last kind of thing. And we knew she was on the back end working on it that whole time. So it worked out great. And she is hysterical, just as a person, but in the spot, she's hilarious too. I guess I can say this on mic. So I want to pull up each spot. And we're just going to watch them through, and then feel free to we can watch them again too. But just like pause and talk about anything you see. You want to point out how we pulled off each of these shots, and I'll do the same if you don't have anything.
Perfect.
All right. So here's the first spot. This spot is called Grandpa Knows Best.
At McCurley, we're here to help you find the vehicle that's right for you. Whether you're most at home surrounded by lots of friends, hanging with your one best friend for an afternoon cruise, or
I forget about that every time I watch this commercial.
I forgot about it too.
No way! Not a chance. Could you show us something with a little less horsepower?
Absolutely. I was thinking the same thing.
because it's more than a vehicle, it's your way home.
Cool. So now with memories jogged, anything about that you want to point out and talk about how we pulled off?
Yeah, well, that was a mainly green screen spot. We did do some stuff that was on location, and I don't think you can tell,
No,
which
yeah.
I'm really excited about. So, but yeah, we had a pop-up green screen, and we filmed out in the parking lot. We found that it's better to film outside if you're under shade.
Yeah.
Which had to do a reshoot for a different spot.
Yep.
But yeah, this one worked out pretty well. I think.
Yeah, the green screen comes out really nicely. That's what allowed us sort of to do that transition between looking like we're at the dealership and then sort of when they imagine them somewhere else, we can transition to another place. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we did on the technical side that was...
I think it was just mainly matching up the perspectives of the windows.
Yeah.
And like the mirror.
Definitely.
And yeah, I feel like it was harder to find locations than it was to do anything else in the spot.
Yeah, it's
So-
true. Yeah, locations were difficult, and then apparently, as we just remembered watching it, apparently also casting was a little bit of a challenge because I completely forgot there was a role. I forget that we got one role when we were casting, and so then we get to shoot this scene. We go, all right, now we're going to have him. He's going to turn. He's going to look out the window, and he's going to be a street racer. And then we realized that we never cast another person to do the street race.
Well, I think we were trying to find a stock clip because we wanted it to
That's
be,
right,
because
yeah.
we filmed it in your Prius, but we
didn't
wanted
want a
it to be a
Prius.
little bit more sporty. But yeah, because we filmed that one late at night, and then I think, that was a
Yeah, the
it was
street,
an
yeah.
interesting shot.
Yeah, I think if we'd shot it from a different angle or a wider angle and you'd seen the car, you would have known that I'm definitely not a real street racer. But I think I pulled off. It works.
Mm-hmm.
It works for, I did as best I can on the spot acting while sitting in a Prius. And then I added some sound effects to make it sound like it was a faster car. Because I think in real life, the battery operated vehicle doesn't really rev like that. So, yeah, anything else about this spot you want to maybe talk about?
Oh, we just had great actors for this spot. Like the young man, he is fantastic
So
at
good.
direction.
Yeah.
It was so easy to say things, and same for the grandpa. Like, I mean, he reminds me of like Pixar.
I know.
I want to do another spot with him just because with him playing a grandpa like character. I don't
Yeah.
know what we have to do, but and then the salesperson was great as well. She
Yeah.
was. Her shot was a little bit difficult because it was windy.
That's true. Yeah.
And so basically, you were just standing with the boom mic waiting for the wind to die down.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that one was a little difficult, but I don't think the wind in that spot isn't distracting to me.
No, yeah, I agree. I think the sound, for what it was a challenge. You're right. The sound was a little bit of an issue just for that one take on the dealership. We just happened to be shooting on a windy day, but it added. It was a beautiful day. There's something about that that just worked out really nicely. It was natural light and it looked great. Aside from the wind, it was a beautiful day anyway. Yeah, that grandpa, his delivery was great. It's not the way when I wrote the spot. It's not at all how I heard the delivery of that line. But as soon as we said action, he did that first take. I was like, yeah, that's the way you're going to do it. That is so funny. Like he read it in such a funny way, and his voice, yeah, is kind of an iconic. It does sound like almost an animated character like this. It was great. So this was the introduction to the concept of people seeing themselves in their vehicles.
Yeah, and I think this spot too, you did a great job of transitioning from the older stuff that we've ran for them, where it's the more montage-based stuff, and then bringing that comedy at the end. These spots, like as we go through them, they get more and more comedic.
Yes, that is a good point. It was sort of that first one was sort of an idea of like, it still feels kind of like a montage. It has a similar feel to what we've done in the past, and it's almost like what do you call that? An easy transition. We're easing people into this new campaign, this new style of doing things. All right, so this is spot number 2 in the campaign. This one's called Wouldn't Have It Any Other Way Home.
Whether your way home is a loud symphony of chaos you wish you could get out of your head. A museum of messes not even the greatest of scientific minds could explain. Or somehow, there just isn't enough time no matter how early you leave.
So, what do you think?
I wouldn't have it any other way.
We're here to help you find the vehicle that's perfect for you.
God, I love that spot. That is so good. Watching this back again, we already talked about the green screen, but man, that is good. Like, it really feels like they're there on the dealership lot, doesn't it? Like,
Yeah.
That's really, really good.
Yeah. Oh, and I don't think we've said this. We film these outside our offices.
Yeah.
Under a tree.
Yeah, almost every bit of it. Even the street
Yeah.
racing thing was just sitting right by the same tree, just at night in the dark. Yeah. So many things in there. We might have to watch back through and pause to remember, but there's so many things that just, I don't know. Sorry. What
Yeah.
stands out to you want to talk about? and
Well,
point out here?
filming with all 4 of the family members in the car, you weren't there for that shoot.
Right.
And it was so windy. Like, that wind was not fake. That was just, I couldn't do anything else. It was, I was honestly scared to keep, I don't think I left the camera alone to set up a shot. So it was basically it was that windy. So I had to set up everybody, and then I had to stay behind the camera and I couldn't even look through the camera. I basically made sure it was in focus, and then I watched the actors and the camera and the surroundings, because that's all I could really do to make the shot successful. But yeah, I gave the kids a lot of goldfish.
Here we
and
go.
Cheez-Its.
Yeah.
And that was the company car. And as you can see, they threw them quite
Yes.
a bit.
Yes.
I just told them to go crazy, and they did. They totally did.
I think it's the happy accidents that's the theme of this spot that make the spot. Like you talked about the wind, but when she's like, what the, and she's holding the goo and the stuff in her, the
just
gross in her hand, and her
everywhere.
hair's blowing in the wind, and then the music is, oh, like this, epic. I don't even know what you
Yeah,
call it.
I'm so glad that turned out, because I was like watching it, and I was like, shoot, we might have to reshoot this.
Yeah.
I was so nervous.
No, it emphasized the like craziness that we were trying to go for, and then the other happy accident is the kids going nuts with that. Is that the actor got hit in the eyeball with a goldfish, and then it made the final cut
Yeah.
because it had to.
Apparently that happened more than once. I only got it on camera once,
no.
though. So
Oh, it's so good.
they
Again,
did a fantastic job.
yeah. Again, the acting is great though. We had a great cast on these spots, and then yeah, that's funny. Our contact at McCurley. I don't know if I should say his name, but our contact at McCurley on the marketing side, he even like responded when he saw it, and he's like, getting hit in the eyeball with a goldfish is totally relatable. Like, it happens to me all the time, which is hysterical. But again, that's what we're going for, is you still want to be relatable. We're not just like off the wall concepts. And so.
Yeah, I think the Baby Shark is totally relatable too. Like,
Oh, totally, yeah.
I don't even have kids, but I know that song.
Yep, yeah.
And I know it's very repetitive.
Yeah, or just in general, the idea of all this kids' music is the same. Like, it was just, I was having this conversation today. Like, there's times I walk around the office and just like kick myself because I'll be walking around singing about like the Rainbow Rangers theme song or something from something my daughter watches, and I'm like, God, just they make them really catchy and really annoying at the same time. Like, you never want those songs in your head. So that, again, that's what we're playing on. It's just this idea of that relaxation at first of like, wow, what a nice car, and then remembering, like, will this work for my kids? And then all the chaos that means. It's like when you say, when this car worked for my kids, that it means, will you be able to clean it? Will you still love it when it's dirty, when it's kids are kicking the back of your chair, when it's, all the things that kids happen to do. And then, yeah, of course, it brings it back around to a little more heartfelt at the end. It's like, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Like, despite the chaos, I'd still rather, yeah, this is the car for us,
I just remember cleaning the car for like an hour afterwards, and then I still found Cheez-Its.
As a disclaimer, just in case everyone knows, so no animals nor children nor anyone was harmed in the making of this ad. Just our car a little. And
the actor's eye that got hit with the goldfish.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You did a little bit of stunt work, just a little bit of stunt work. All right, so this next one hasn't aired yet. I'm hoping because this will be next month. This should air in October. Hopefully they will have aired this by then. If not,
Then we'll probably have to push this
we have
episode.
to push this episode. Yeah, but I'm going to show this spot. Yeah.
Just the thumbnail.
Just the thumbnail's great.
Every thumbnail I can pick from this has been so fun.
I think the best thing about the fact that we've been cutting this and getting so like really, really detailed with our edits is that we just keep finding more really funny clips. Like this has been one of the more fun just processes to have been a part of, and especially on my side, just like you're really executing on all the work. I'm just kind of checking in on it, reviewing it, giving some feedback or whatever. And every time I see it, I'm seeing something new. And it's just like every time I laugh at something new. So anyway, yeah. So this final spot is called "Yo Way Home, Homie."
Baby shining bright like a diamond, meditate daily, baby enlightened, baby gon' run it up like an athlete, plays gold at the track meet, at the stadium show going super hard, cause baby a superstar, just bought a crib out of lake, off of the grid and out of LA, spirit awake, life is amazing, don't waste a day, learn from the L's and mistakes, baby so glowed up, baby focused, got my eyes on me, baby made so much, feeling generous, 6 figs in a week,
My favorite part.
light, shine,
I love the peace signs. She does it.
Okay, Miss Doty.
However you feel at home, we can help you get there.
All right. I love it. I really do. This is one of those, I think, again, it took a lot of tweaking to try and make sure we still kept that theme and tied back in to make sure that it was clear we didn't just make a rap video for fun, that it's still bringing it back to the car. And I think this newest cut does that. That's great. I think that's the first time I've seen it, aside from when you were editing it, like before you've exported it. So I've just like watched it without any of the buffering or any of the rendering or any of the weird stuff that might, make it look weird. It looks great. I think it's phenomenal. It's another the green screen all looks fantastic. It keyed really well. you mentioned a reshoot.
Yeah, we did reshoot it, and I did still have to do some extra masking, but yeah, we made it look like it didn't have to do that.
Yeah,
though. So that's what the reshoot very much helped, because this was actually the first spot we filmed, even though it's like the finale spot. We basically had like 1 week where we just filmed all 3 of these spots back to back to back. And originally we filmed the first round of green screen shots in direct sunlight, which was not the right call. We had way too much spill on the actors' faces and on the car. So when we went to go key it, we also keyed out the actors' faces and a little bit of the car.
Yeah.
So rather than trying to mask it and rotoscope it and spend hours doing that, we just did a reshoot.
Sometimes, there's a saying. I had a friend that used to always say the cheapest thing. I'm sure he didn't coin this phrase, but the cheapest thing to do is another take. It's always the cheapest thing to do. Now, you don't want to have to reshoot over and over and over again. That starts getting expensive when you're dealing with actors and things like that. But in this case, we could have probably spent a month rotoscoping and fixing all that spill. And it's like, you know what? In this case, it was cheaper to just do a reshoot. I think that's something that we haven't talked about. That's a challenge of shooting in a car in general is spill. I don't think you realize how much is reflective in a vehicle, especially. Most cars have leather seats and things like that, reflective surfaces. If a car's clean, which they typically are for a car commercial, almost every surface is pretty reflective, so shooting on a green screen is a challenge, and you have to think about how you make sure that light, you said spill, I just want to say this for people who don't speak videographer. Spill, you mean like it's reflecting, the light is bouncing and reflecting back onto people because it was so bright. The green was so bright from sunlight, it was reflecting onto faces, it's reflecting onto any surface inside the vehicle, and so then when we'd key, it was taking off those reflections too. I don't know if anyone understands how a green screen works, but
basically you film where you want the green or whatever you want to like replace. You put green there, and then when you're in post, you can just tell the editing software to take out that specific hue. So you just color pick it, and then it takes it out, which is why you don't wear green when you're on a green screen, because it'll take away your shirt or whatever your clothing is. Yeah. I'm sure everybody's seen, the takes of news people wearing green.
I saw a video. It was so funny to me because you'd think they would know, that the anchors would know. And there was a video of like a woman wearing a green dress. It was like St. Patrick's Day or something, and she's doing the weather report. And you can obviously see through her green dress. But then the anchor gets excited and goes, oh, wow, this will be funny. And he runs and stands behind her, thinking that, like, it'll put her head on his body. And then he keeps going, I don't understand why this doesn't work. And I'm like, because she's not invisible.
Yeah, it's just invisible in post.
Yeah, it's only invisible where it's green. Yeah. And you're technically hidden behind the green, too. Anything else on the technical side? I think what stands out to me is just remembering, again, like we talked about, having someone have to learn all those lyrics. Was tricky to time, making sure we got it all right, and the timing and the action and stuff when you're working with. Yeah.
And we did end up filming it one line at a time, just because there's some parts that get really fast, and I don't even think that we could repeat them. And Aaron and I have definitely memorized this entire song.
Yeah.
We actually had to cut out a stanza in this cut, and it trips me up every time because I'm going to. We've just listened to it way too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we just fed it one line at a time, and I think we ended up even just like saying the line and then having her repeat it without the music, because it was a little hard to like play the music at the same time. We were blasting it through the car speakers and things for the for the outside shoot. But yeah, we didn't have a ton of technical shots. This one was definitely a theatrical type of shoot, whereas like it's scripted, that's what I mean by theatrical. But we didn't have a lot of super technical shots. It was more like just get the moment and make the moment great type of thing. And that was more of like your motivation for filming. It's a lot of handheld stuff. We did try to do some tripod stuff with the wide angle lens, but I don't think many of those cuts or shots made it into the final cut.
Yeah, there may be one or two, But, overall, I think it works. I think and again, I also think we haven't talked about this yet, so I'll mention it. But like even the picking of the song, I think it's a bop. So like it's stuck in my head. It's not like Baby Shark. I actually don't mind it. If this song's stuck in my head, I'm okay with it. It's got a nice beat to it. The rhythm's good. Shout out to the artist. I don't know who you are.
Because it's from a stock site.
It's from a stock site, right? But whoever you are, awesome. You did a great job. But also one of the reasons we picked it's because the song is talking about being one of a kind, which is, again, what the theme of the spot is. So it's not like we just picked a song out of a hat, too, and just went like, here's a funny rap song. It, one, needed to be a woman's voice because we knew it was going to be a woman, so I wanted it to be a woman rapping. And then the other thing is just, I wanted to find something that was on theme, and I think one felt out of character so that it would be funny, and then was on theme and still could tie back so people make sense. If you listen to the lyrics, it's talking about being one of a kind and being whatever, and it's again her visualizing her life as this superstar.
Yeah.
Because of the car she's driving, like, this is going to turn me into the superstar I've always wanted to be, and I'm one of a kind. I'm not like other grandmas, I'm and I think that was sort of the idea.
And I think it also paired well, just like Dodie's mantra in life is live a great story.
Yeah.
So she tells me that all the time, and so I was like, I'm like, Dodie, this is just you if you were a rapper, and I had to explain it to her that way.
Cool. Well, if there's anything else we want to talk about these, this is I love this campaign. I'm excited for people to see it. I think it's going to make waves no matter what. I think just the
I'm so
visuals
excited.
here, her dancing in front of that car is hysterical. It's just she's just she's got a great personality. She's a hilarious person, and I think she makes the spot.
Yeah,
so,
I'm just glad that the goal of this campaign was more like just to capture your attention, and there wasn't like something else that we were trying to. We just want you to remember McCurley, and I think this campaign does a great job of that.
Yeah, and now once they've all run, they could all run in tandem, and none of them necessarily don't. They all build on each other, but they don't put down the other one. They all flow really well together, and they even flow with their older stuff. I think you could play them alongside when they're older, more emotional, and you get that that's still what it's about. It's still about making the customer the hero. We're still keeping that consistent theme. So yeah, A+ in my opinion. All right, getting into our final round of questions here. What advice do you have for anyone else out there who's listening that maybe wants to craft a campaign like this one? What steps would you tell them to take, and how would they know if a direction like this one is right for them?
Yeah, well, it definitely depends on, every organization has a different, inherent set of what they do. So if you're going to incorporate comedy, there's some companies that I could see that or like a nonprofit, you have to be very careful with your comedy because what you're doing isn't typically funny work or lighthearted work. It's typically very serious work in a nonprofit. But if you're going to do just like a theatrical campaign in general, which theatrical meaning scripted with actors, not a documentary-based, interview-based style campaign, I think you want to have a very solid script, and you want to have the script locked, like way ahead of time, because otherwise then it's going to get really expensive.
Yeah.
If you're making a change. You don't want to get to the final revision and then you want to change a line, because then you have to start all over from the beginning.
Yeah.
So that's something to keep in mind, especially like if you're hiring another production agency to do this, is you have to be solid with the script first. Because if not, then it's a whole ordeal. It's not cheap to make that decision in the final edit.
Yeah, I think that's good advice too about like just really considering who your organization is and what your brand and your voice is. I think for someone like McCurley, this was a little bit easier to do because you're right, they're not dealing with like, AIDS, support or cancer or something where you have to be a little bit more delicate about what you're doing. There's a lot. Those also people have a lot of emotional ties to, and even then, like you said, it doesn't mean you can't be funny, but you have to be really very, very specific about your script to make sure that what you're doing isn't offensive or isn't belittling the cause that you're trying to represent.
Like it resonates in a way that makes you feel good, not in a way that makes you go like, what did I just watch?
Well, and just it reinforces the message and make sure the message is consistent. I think that was the big pull for me. I think because we talk about it at BrandCraft, Tori, our CEO, he says that our brand books that we give people after we develop brand, he says you look at it, it's like a lens to which to look at your company, to look at your brand. Right. And you understand this. You're as a videographer, like right now we're shot on two different lenses. Right. Like I'm not going to like how I look as much as I would like if I was sitting in yours because you're on a slightly longer lens, which, again, a different lens compresses. It makes the background look closer. Makes you look prettier. Yeah, it makes your face. It changes the shape of your face just a little bit. It looks a little prettier on a longer lens. And again, that doesn't mean we're saying that your brand every time is going to be a long lens. It's always going to make it look pretty. I mean, it is going to make it look pretty, but the point is, there is a specific lens for which you look at your company. And I think once you understand that this is that's what a brand guide does, and for a company like us, we do know that. So we're going to look at your brand guide, we're going to look at your brand, and we're going to write you a script, and we're going to give you a concept that shows you the way that you're supposed to be shown, that says your message the way it's supposed to be said, the right tone, the right voice. I like the lens metaphor. I worry that maybe other people don't understand it, so I'm trying to find a way to put that in context for people.
There's a lot of math that goes into lenses.
Yeah.
It's very, very technical. It's probably one of the more technical portions of videography. But yeah, not to say that a wide lens makes you unflattering, but it can if it's not angled the correct way.
Or in the right distance.
Yeah.
I think the best way the best, most relatable way is, most people know this. I've seen it's been like a TikTok trend lately, is people talk about shoot on your back camera, not your front. The reason they're saying that is because the lenses, those are different lenses, and and there's also people who do the thing where they like, I put the camera far away and then zoom in. I like how I look better. It's like, that's right, because you're stepping outside of that, what do they call that, aberration of the lens that changes the warping of your face. You get far enough away, your face looks more like what it actually looks like to the eye. And again, and that's what a brand guide does, is we're making sure people see you the way that you're supposed to be seen.
Yeah, and your cell phone lenses are like the most extreme version of different lenses. It's a good way to teach you what a lens does, but
again, I don't know if this makes sense to anyone who isn't a
probably
videographer.
Really technical.
Yeah, but that's why I really like the metaphor Tori uses. It's a lens to look through. Maybe you guys can think of it as a filter to look through if you're not a videographer person. But the idea is this brand guide is going to tell you who your business is, and so when everyone reads it, they understand who it is and they know how to talk about it. That's what we want, and that's what we try to use when we craft campaigns like these. All right, we spent a lot of time on that question.
Yeah.
We beat that one to death. Okay, yeah. Now let's talk about timeline. So, what kind of timeline? What does it take to pull off a campaign like this?
I think at least 2 weeks of just pre-production of planning. You got to get the locations figured out, and it also depends on, like, we did a campaign with 3 spots. We had 10 actors. That takes a while.
It does.
To coordinate. So I gave everybody I think a 5-day window, and asked them when they were free. And then we had people come back and tell us their availability. And some of it didn't work. Some people tried to negotiate usage rights, which we didn't have the flexibility for in this campaign. So we had to do some recasting. So it takes about 2 weeks just to even get your actors and your location set, because you also need to make sure you have the rights to the locations. We utilized public spaces, and then either the client's location or our location, just to avoid other legalities that come with that.
There's just I guess what you're saying is
it's complex.
What you're saying is that really it depends, and I think that's hard, because I do wish that we could just really productize this more, and we try to the best of our abilities. We have different packages, and we understand this is just what, and then sometimes the budget is the constraint that makes us figure out what that package is, right? How we shoot it. In this case, we utilized a lot of green screen and then public spaces to ensure that we didn't have to worry about getting permits and all the other stuff that you can sometimes run into also.
Which we don't need permits here in Tri-Cities.
Right.
If we were shooting in Seattle or Portland, we'd have to go through the film commission, and then we'd have to get a permit from the city, and there'd be a lot more paperwork involved.
Yeah, and in some of our other locations, Spokane and Boise, sometimes that can be something we run into. So I ask these questions just because I want to try to set a little bit of expectations. So instead, let's just say everything, all that aside, we're going to figure out the process and what it takes. What's a minimum? What would you say, an investment? If you tell, hey, I need a spot, can you get a spot for me done? And what would you say? What's the ideal? Let's just go ideal. What's the ideal amount of time you'd like to spend at a minimum? That's kind of an oxymoron. But the ideal amount of time you'd want as a minimum working on a campaign like this.
Yeah, I would say definitely still the 2 weeks for pre-production. I'm not going to spend 80 hours on it, but it just takes time for people to get back to you. Then 3 to 4 days filming of 3 spots, and those are 8-hour shoot days.
Right. So you call that another week, so we're at 3 weeks now. And
then for editing, I don't even remember what our budget was on these or how many hours I spent.
Yeah.
I mean, pre-revision, I think we spent probably at least 12 hours per spot. So that's about another week for 3 spots.
Okay. Yeah. So another week per spot. So if you're looking at a campaign like this, 3 spots, you're saying it's probably really talking about maybe a month, 2 months probably at a good, would be a realistic expectation.
Yeah. Just in case we have to do any reshooting, things like that, turnaround time.
Yeah. And then also, on the pre-production side, just writing and going back and forth on scripts like you talked about, making sure that's honed in.
You wrote the script, so I didn't even think about that part. Yeah. How long did you spend writing the scripts?
I don't remember. I think that's just, it all depends. It depends. I think it takes the time to write the scripts it takes to make sure you find that right spot, that's my favorite part of the journey is finding just when you find that and you go, this is the right story. This does all the things. This hits all the points. It solves all the goals we were trying to solve with the campaign. And that's a fun process. The brainstorming we talked about earlier with Thomas and everybody else, that's a fun process to go through. So I don't remember how long that took. But yeah, I would agree. I'd say at a minimum, something like this is probably a 2-month, and that's not for every spot, but that means to complete the entire campaign,
Yeah.
right? In 2 months, I think if you could dedicate 2 months as a client, we can dedicate 2 months as an agency working on it. Yeah, 2 months seems like a realistic expectation for a nice high-end campaign like this.
That's theatrical.
Again,
Because if
yes.
it was an interview-based one, that cuts out a lot of time.
It does, yeah.
And that's mainly because you don't have to coordinate everybody at the same exact time.
Yeah.
So.
And that might even depending on that, it could even mean the coordination isn't necessarily on us. So that might be based on what our client can do, what the client can put together, and when they can schedule their people to come in and do the interviews and et cetera. All right. So the last question, this is the dreaded one. Let's talk about budget. What does this cost realistically to do something like this?
There's so many variables. This one we didn't have to pay for locations, so you didn't have that cost. We did have to pay all the actors, though. I don't know how much that actually cost. But then you also have got like our hourly rate, and then you have to, any equipment that might be different. There's a lot to calculate.
There is.
On this one.
There is. I think I can just tell you what I normally tell people,
Yeah.
if this helps, is I normally tell people, look, it's about on average about $7,500 per spot.
Yeah.
So for a campaign like this, we did 3 of them. I'm really bad at math. What's that? Another 15, 7, 21, another 15, 20. I just lost the math in my head
I think
already.
around 23, a little bit less.
Around $23,000 for the full campaign, though. This is not
Right.
for one commercial. So I think, I would say that's the kind of investment you're looking at a minimum on the higher end, depending on what else we have to pay for or what else it might take. I always say this when people say, well, it's a 30-second. We don't really gauge pricing based on the length of it because because then you say, okay, cool, we're going to do 30-second, but it's a 30-second spot where you're going to hike Mount Everest. It's like, okay, well, you just fooled me a little, didn't you?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't take 30 seconds to make it, and it's going to cost me a lot to do. So it really depends on what the concept is, which is, again, why I think we like to start with talking about goals. We always want to start talking about what do you want to accomplish with this? What problem are we trying to solve? And then from there, we're going to try to put together, here's what we can do. If you can give us a budget to start, that's great, because then we can more realistically tell you, okay, well, here's what's possible, and here's how we think that can solve the goal. And that's where that creativity and strategy comes in. But I think just to try and keep it at a nice round number, I'd say per commercial, something like this, we put all the real effort into, you're looking at probably starting out around $7,500.
Yeah, per spot.
Yeah, per spot.
Yeah. And that includes a lot of things. Like, we have to pay the voiceover artist for in every new, if we record one and we want to add new words, we have to pay him again.
Yeah.
If we do a reshoot with anybody, we have to pay them again. So that's where some of the costs are coming from. I'm just trying to think of what all the costs that go into making a video.
Yeah, I think the biggest costs are the obvious ones. It's just like the time we spend both on the pre-production side and post-production side, and then obviously the shooting. I think everyone knows about the shooting, but I think you don't realize how much time and effort goes into, like we talked about, all of the things that went behind the scenes into, memorizing rap lyrics months ahead of the shoot, working with actors months ahead. Brainstorming, coordinating outfits. Yeah, we haven't talked about that.
Doty's, I spent quite a bit of time. We looked through so many.
Finding the right clothing and stuff so that it pops on screen and it pops off the background on screen. Then there's the time you take on set, obviously, lighting and things like that. But even in the pre-production side, I think there's a lot of pre-productions. That's what most people tend to skip, is that planning.
Right.
And I think that's the big thing that I think we bring that's a big difference, is that our focus is on brand, it's on story, and it's on strategy. And we're going to spend a lot of time making sure the strategy's right.
Yeah.
So that's, for the most part, I think, where most of the budget goes, almost always.
Yeah. Well, if you have a solid plan, you can execute almost flawlessly.
Exactly. And because we gave ourselves that time to do it, like that we had the budget and the time to make sure we got it right, so we could afford to make happy accidents too. Yeah, sweet. Is there anything else you want to add? I think that was the last of my questions.
I don't think so.
Cool. Well, awesome. Thank you, Margo. Now let's go get to work. It's a great way to start the day.
Awesome.
Cool. I'll see you over there.